Hi everybody, welcome to Bubble and Squeak DIY. My name is Debbie. I'm really excited about today's make for our melt and pour soap. So today we're going to do something slightly different. We're going to make a decorative soap that could be in someone's bathroom just to smell pretty, look pretty, or it can be used. But we're going to make it so that a person can choose what they might want to do with it. So let's talk about what we're going to need today. I purchased this 3D mold of a bear. It can be a teddy bear or a polar bear, whatever you want it to be, depending on what color you make it. Today we're going to make it look more like a polar bear. And then also we have square cubes that we're going to make look like a piece of ice that the polar bear is sitting on. So today we're going to be using shea butter that is very white. And we're going to be using a clear melt and pour that isn't crystal clear because we don't mind it being slightly clouded. Ice isn't purely clear. And we're going to be swirling a blue into it to make it look like ice. So for today's purpose, our clear doesn't have to be crystal clear because we're not putting an embed into it. So I have my cloth. I have my stir sticks for my soap. I have my scoops for my mica. My pipette for the scent. Today's scent is going to be alpine cheer because I figure something that's more Arctic might smell like pine trees. We have our 91% rubbing alcohol, and again it says 70% on here, but I buy a big jug of 91%, and I pour it into this because I had this left over when I bought it at the dollar store for other projects that I was doing. We're going to be using these soap micas, and I will put a link to where you can purchase these. These actually have a number of different color mica samples inside. So I'm trying these out. I will provide a link in case you want to purchase and try them. Normally I use Stardust micas, but today I'm going to try these. So I have a blue pearl dry that's going to go into the clear to make it look like the ice. And then I'm going to use a mix of pearl mica and bronze mica. I'm just going to add a tiny bit of the bronze just to tinge our polar bear in some areas. Now I have it out. I may decide I'm not going to use it once I've put the pearl in, but I have it here in case. We are going to use a black mica from Stardust Micas in here with a little bit of rubbing alcohol, and we're going to use a paintbrush so that we can make his nose and eyes black. So I also have my scale because I haven't measured these molds yet since they're so new. Once I've made the soap, I'm going to weigh them so I can write on the bottom what the ounces is of the soap that I've made, and I can write them on the bottom of the molds. I have my temperature gun, and I also have my gloves that I'm going to put on now, and I'm going to go ahead and melt my white shea butter and we can get started. I'll be right back. I'm back, and I have melted my shea butter melt and pour soap. So now we're going to add in our coloring. And I'm going to start with the pearl and see what I think of the color, if I need to add any bronze into it. So I'm going to take my little bath bomb mold that I already have some rubbing alcohol in. I'm going to add in the pearl, and I'm hoping this is just going to tint it just a nice off color into the white that would be more what a polar bear's fur would look like. Polar bears are white, but they're not a pure white. I was watching a nature show one day and realized that they're not as white as we think they are. So I thought I'd just try to mimic it. So there's the pearl color. I'm going to drop this in to my soap base and give it a stir. Oh, rubbing alcohol here so that I can get the rest of the mica out. So spray it off into the soap base. And I have my skewer here. Just going to move this stuff out of the way. And I'm going to use the back end of the skewer. I'm just going to mix it all in here and see what I think. So it's gone a little bit off-white, but I think I'm going to add just a tiny bit of the bronze powder as well to the mix, just to make it that little bit more color that I think polar bear would be. This is an experiment, so it may work, it may go horribly wrong. All I can do is try. But I'm just going to add the tiniest bit, I mean just a teeny tiny bit to it. So I've got a tiny amount on the end of my scoop. And when I put this in, I'm going to go very slowly until I get where I want to be. So this is the bronze, and it is quite dark compared to what I'm looking for. So I'm going to do this extremely slowly, just a tiny bit at a time, just to see what I think. And actually I've got a bit of a swirl in there. I'm going to try to show you what this looks like now. So there's just a tiny bit of swirl, so I think I'm going to leave it at that and see what happens with it in the mold, because this is new to me as well, so it's an experiment. So I'm going to take my 3D mold. Oh, I almost forgot to add my scenting. So I'm going to take the Alpine Cheer scent, and because this is a small mold, I'm not going to add in a huge amount of it. I think just a ml will be fine. So I have 1 ml in here, and I'm going to drop it in. Put my lid back on. And this is a Candora soap scent. Oh, it smells beautiful. It's got a beautiful pine scent to it. So I'm going to go ahead and give that a little bit of a stir, just to get it into the soap without destroying my nice marbling effect that I have. Okay, so now we're ready to pour this into the mold. So I'm going to do so here. I'm just going to pour very slowly until I'm at the top. And it looks like I have some more left over, so I might make another bear when I'm done this one. And I'm just going to give it a little bit of a shake down just to release as many of the air bubbles as I possibly can up to the top. And then I'm going to spray the surface to try to get rid of as many of the air bubbles as possible. And I'm just seeing a little something in here. Oh, I think it's I don't know what it was. Anyway, so I'm going to try one more time just to make sure I've got as many of the air bubbles out as possible. And don't worry about spilling on the overtop, because it's the air bubbles that we're concerning ourselves with at this point. So I'm going to wait for this to set. And my bath bomb mold that I have the bronze in, I'm just going to leave it because the rubbing alcohol will dry out and the mica powder will be left in the bottom, and I can use it again for another project. Or I might decide to do a teddy bear next time around and add it right into my soap base. So I'm just going to let this set now, and then we will start the project with the cube that's going to look like the ice he's sitting on. I'm so excited about this. I think it's going to look really pretty when it's done. We're going to be setting him right on the top, so that a little bit of his feet look like they're in the ice. So when we do this, there's going to be some steps, and we're going to need our heat gun. For this part, we didn't need it because we're pouring straight into a mold, and now we just have to wait for it to set. Just keep an eye on your soap for a few minutes when you've got it in the mold, so that you can monitor if there's any new air bubbles coming up to the surface. And if they do, just give it another spray down. So we will be back once this is set. Okay, so we're back, and our bear soap has set in the mold. So what I'm going to show you is you can clean up your teddy bear's bottom part just by taking a skewer and rubbing it along the edges of the mold, just to get that little bit of extra soap that you may have spilled off. I did a little bit of this off camera, and I'm just showing you for the purpose of understanding what I'm doing. It can be time consuming if you want to do it this way, or you can wait till you've unmolded the bear and then just take a knife and run it along the edge. I like to do it this way just because it makes it easier for me in the long run. So we are gonna, this is what it looks like set in the mold. And so now we're going to just slowly release it from the mold by pulling the edges back. Try to do it gently. And with the silicone molds, sorry, my gloves are making this process a little more difficult, but I want to keep them on because if I give a soap away, I like them to not have any contamination. But I'm just going to slowly release them out. So there we have our 3D bear, and he is really cute. And there's this back side, underneath, and top. So these molds can make things very pretty. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get my black mica ready, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to paint a little bit of black in his eyes and nose area. So I'm going to get that ready. I'm just going to use a drop or two of alcohol in the bottom of my little painter's molds. I get these at the dollar store in a package of 6. So I'm going to get it ready with the black mica powder in it, and it's a Stardust mica. I'll show you in a moment. I'm going to get it all ready, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to paint on his eyes and nose. I'll be right back. And I'm back, and I'm just going to take a little bit of this Stardust mica powder. This is the black, and I'm going to just put a tiny bit, because I don't need much of this, into my rubbing alcohol that I have in here. I'm just going to put the lid back on this. And I'm just going to give it a little swirl here. I want it to be fairly thick so that when I paint it on, it stays on the soap. Some of my 3D molds I like to hand paint inside of them, but this one was a little more difficult because the eyes are so far up. So I have my bear, and I'm just going to go ahead and dab a little bit onto his eye area. I'll try to show you up close here what I'm doing. So we have that one done. I'm going to flip him. And I'm going to do the second eye. And I'm using a very fine-ended paintbrush here to make sure that I don't overdo his eyes. So I think that looks good. I might just darken it up a little bit here. Don't want to overdo it, but I don't want to underdo it either. So there we have his eyes done. And then I'm just going to do his nose as well. So let's see if I can show you what I'm doing here. I'm just going to do his little bit of mouth there. Oh, I got a little bit on his paw, but that's okay. I can actually go over that if I want to with a little bit of water, just to pull it back off. But you know what? Maybe he's got a little bit of dirt on his paw. That's okay too. I can make the ends of his paw black. I think I'm going to go ahead and do that just so that it doesn't look like I've made a mistake. The nice thing about this is you can add things in as you want to. So maybe I'll make the bottom of his paws too black. him a little bit of definition here. So there I've gone ahead and done his little paws. And I'm just going to do the bottom of his feet here. Give him little black pads. You can do what you want. If you wanted to go ahead and paint some of the hair brown on your bear to make him a little more like a teddy bear, that's fine. I'm just going to do the inside of his ears a little bit too. I like to kind of decide what I'm doing with these things as I go along. Make them special, make them unique. My next one may not have this. And there we go. So there's our bear. And he's really cute. Just going to paint this eye a little more. There we go. So there we have our bear. And he's ready to go now with the rest of our soap. So I'm just going to set him aside for the moment. I'm going to clean up my surface and get my next mold ready, and I'll be back in a moment to start the next part of the process. Okay, so I'm back, and for this project I'm going to use the square here so you can see exactly what I'm doing. I have my half bath bomb mold and I've put distilled water in it. The reason I'm putting distilled water in this instead of alcohol is I want the blue to produce a better sort of downwards swirl when I pour the soap and I put it in the top and the bottom of the mold. So the difference is rubbing alcohol with the mica powders in it will disperse more into the soap, but when we put it with distilled water, it tends to spread out in the soap differently. It's to do with the alcohol versus water makeup, and I'll probably do a tutorial at some point where I show you what both can do in a couple of soaps side by side, but for now I'm going to do it this way. So I've already gone ahead and melted down my clear melt and pour. This is not the crystal clear, this is just a clear melt and pour soap, and it's already getting a skin on it. So it's pretty low in temperature. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take some of this blue mica in the water, and I'm going to just drop it into the bottom here in different drops. We'll see how that goes. Again, I'm doing this as I go with you. I have not done this before, so this way, so with the water, so I'm not sure how this is going to work with the clear. I've done it with the 3 butter soap to make the swirl, but not with the clear. And we're just going to pour it over top of all of those little bits, and we're just going to bring it up 3/4 of the way because I want this to form a bit of a skin. And I'm just going to give it a bit of a swirl just so that the color swirls around in the soap a little bit and doesn't sit just in one spot. And it's also going to give it just a slight blue tinge like ice would be. Okay, so I'm going to let that set so that I have some skin across the top. I'm just going to give it a squirt with alcohol. I don't mind too much about there being some extra air bubbles in this because ice does have bubbles in it. So that's kind of a neat effect. Actually, this is developing a skin pretty fast, so I'm going to go ahead and heat up the rest of my melt and pour to pour over the bear's feet. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and when I come back we should be ready to go ahead and pour the final layer. So I'm just going to go do that now and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back and I'm just going to see how well the skin is set on this because I don't want the bear to sink in it, and it's got a bit of a bounce and some liquid soap still on top. So I think I'm gonna let this set fairly firm, and then we will put the rest of the melt and pour with a little bit more of the blue. So once this is set a little more, I'll be back and I will show you the final process of this soap. Okay, so I'm back and I've put my bear on top so that you can see that he is just sitting on the surface of the soap and he's not going into it. Now there is a bit of stick between him and the soap because I sprayed the top with rubbing alcohol, which is showing us that he's going to stick nicely. For this intent and purpose, I'm going to look at about where I'm going to put him on top of the soap, and then I'm going to lift him and I'm going to do a little bit of cross hatching on top of the soap just so that when I put him down he sticks well. And I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. I'm going to score the bottom of the bear soap with my skewer just so that when I spray the top with alcohol we're going to get a good stick for him and the next round of soap that we pour. So I've done that and I'm going to spray the top, and you can see I think the cross hatches that I have on the bear. I'm going to spray the bottom of him, and now I'm going to put him right where I want him on the soap, kind of make him center. I've remelted my melt and pour soap and it's forming a skin. I'm just going to check the temperature of it because I do want to make sure that this layer is fairly cool. So it's sitting at 140.5. I want to see it come down into the mid 130s before I pour it, but I am getting a good skin on it. So I'm going to go ahead and take my pipette and I'm going to add, just going to give this a little stir up with my end of my pipette here, and I'm just going to add a little more blue kind of on the edges and dots around the bear on top of the soap so that this can go into the soap and give it a little more of a swirl. You can see it's kind of swirling out a little bit because of the rubbing alcohol, and that's fine. Okay, this is forming a good skin, so I'm going to assume the temperature's come down enough. Yep, it's at 135. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to pour around my bear until, trying to keep the skin out until we're getting close to the top of the mold. And I'm going to do this very slowly and carefully, making sure I hit all of those little drizzles of blue that I put on it. Okay, this is setting a little faster than I want, so before I go any further, see it's sticking to my bear, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to clean him up. And then I'm going to go ahead and melt this a little more so that I can finish off the top of the soap here. So I'll be right back. So I am back, and I just melted this for a 10-second burst. I'm going to check the temperature of the soap, and I don't mind that there's a little bit of chunking on top of this because the ice is never 100% perfect, and a little bit of chunking will look really pretty. This is at 147, so I'm letting it cool down a little, and the way I'm doing it is I'm just stirring it to cool it down a little bit faster. I might want to spray the top with rubbing alcohol just to get some of the bubbles out that I'm creating in here. And I'm going to stir just a little more until the temperature comes down into the mid 130s. That looks like that with this particular soap, that's the set point beginning. So I want to make sure that I'm not pouring it too cold. Different soap bases have different melting temperatures, so I'm going to make sure that this one doesn't skin over too much again before I go ahead and melt it. Just stop stirring here. I'm at 140.9 already, so we're getting close to the point where I can melt it, but again, I don't want to melt my bear. He's too pretty. I got a little bit of the clear soap on his ear. I'm just going to pull that off after it's cooled with the skewer. See where I'm at here. forming the skin already. So I'm at 135. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pour now to the top of the mold. And if I get a little bit of chunking, I'm not gonna worry too much about it because I think that'll look pretty, because as we know, ice is not perfect. Wow, this is setting really fast. So this particular soap base I'm using does set very quickly. Let's see if I can get any more out here. No. So I'm just going to go ahead and melt it one more time. I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back. And I'm just going to pour the rest of the soap. So I am going to turn it now because most of it where I need is on this side. Just to add in a little more. And then I'm going to spray the soap. Okay, so now he's going to have to set. What I've done in the meantime is I've gone ahead and I have made another bear, and I took the some of the rest of my bronzing powder and I plopped it into the soap base, and it created a really cute swirl. So I'm put it in my bear mold and I'm letting it set right now. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the rest of our clear melt and pour soap. I'm going to add a little bit more to what I have because I don't think it's quite enough to finish. And I'm going to add a green to it so that we have, it looks like a teddy bear sitting on grass, maybe getting ready for a teddy bear's picnic. So I'm going to let this set, and while that's happening, our other mold should be set by the time this is ready to unmold. And then we'll go ahead and we'll make one more, and we'll paint him up a little bit. I'll show you how to do that, and we'll have some fun with it. So we'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back. Off camera I've done a couple of things. I've got my green mica powder ready to go, and I've chosen a nice dark sort of alpine green. It'll go nicely with the scent and make it look like grass that the bear is sitting on. I unmolded my bear and he is so cute. He's got punches of the bronze color all over him, so he kind of looks like a well-loved teddy bear, and I think he's going to look beautiful. I went ahead and I painted his eyes and feet. I don't need to re-show you that as I did earlier. And I pulled out our bear that we made on the ice block. He's ready to be unmolded, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So we're just going to pop him out of the mold. I'm going to kind of stretch the mold so we pop him out nicely. And there's somebody at my door, so I'll be right back. Sorry, I'm back. I had to give a customer an order she'd won on a contest for my business. So I sell interchangeable snap jewelry. At any rate, so here's the bear and his beautiful icy blue piece of ice that he's on, and I've left the top rough. I am not going to change that because I really feel that ice is rough, so it kind of keeps it true to looking what it should. I'll probably just play with the edges a little bit just to get them down. So there he is, and I love the swirling that's happened in here. So now we're going to make our other teddy bear sitting on his green stand. And I'm just going to mix up my melt and pour clear. I'm going to add in the green. I'm going to pour slowly so that I don't pour too much in here, because I still want to have some see-through-ish, well, maybe not. But it's going to have a different look to it than our last soap did. So I'm going to pour some into this mold here. I'm just going to move this so you can see it better. So this kind of gives the mica that lovely frosted look to it. So I'm just going to stop there. Maybe a little more. And this soap sets very quickly, I found. So the one I'm using is not my regular Crafter's Choice because I bought a package from Michael's to do some projects with my daughter, and it's not a Michael's has its different brand here in Canada now, that they're not using the Crafter's Choice anymore. Not sure why, but they're not. So I will show you at the end of the video in the description box which one it is. It definitely has a higher set point in temperature than my Crafter's Choice soap. I seem to prefer my Crafter's Choice just because I started working with the Crafter's Choice. So I kind of know where my points are for melting and cooling a whole lot better. This one sets so fast that I'm not as fond of it, but I think it's all in what you get used to. So I'm just gonna let this set now most of the way, and then we'll go ahead and attach our bear and see what this one looks like. I'll be back when this is ready. Okay, so I thought I'd try something because I want this bear to look like he's sitting on kind of rough grass, not a smooth surface. I've taken my gloves off because I'm not touching anywhere near the soap, but I want to show you when we have the skin, if we take the skewer and we kind of rough up the skin, and I'm going to just do it around the outside because he's going to be sitting in the middle, so I don't want him too roughed up where he's going to be sitting. But if I take the skin and I kind of play with it, it roughs it up all around the edge here, and then we're left with the soap that's still setting in the middle. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that as well around the bear and the final layer. But if I can get most of it done on this layer, then when I pour the rest of the soap, we'll still get that rough look on top. And I'll probably play with this up a little bit so that it's up the sides. And I'm just going to take my skewer, I'm going to push it and play with it and pull it up some so that it looks like, you know, kind of roughed up grass along the edges of the soap. And I'll wait and see how this looks and decide then if I want to pour another layer, if I'm just going to set him in and glue him to the surface with some soap, which I will show you if that's what I decide. But I'm not sure which way I'm going to go with it yet. I'm just going to play with this first and see what I kind of get out of it along the edges. So I'm just talking to you as I'm doing this so you can watch what I'm doing. And I just may set him in the middle of this when it's formed enough of a skin so that he looks like he's sitting in the grass rather than adding more to it. Again, we'll decide when we get there. The nice thing about the soap, it's forgiving, and if I needed to melt it back down, I could do so. I don't feel at this point I'm doing anything that makes me feel like I need to remelt it down. But I think it's going to look really cool, kind of all puckered up along the sides. Don't touch the soap with fingers. Just take it off the skewer onto the edge of my pot here. But I think this is going to look really neat, just kind of all puckered up along the sides here. And then he can sit in the middle. Just going to put a glove back on so I can see, sort of not placing him right in the soap, but sort of on the edge of the soap, what it's going to look like. With him sitting in the middle of that. And that'll be kind of my decision if I want to add any more soap to the middle of this. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to put a very thin layer when I set him in there just to set him in the soap with the cross hatching. But I really like how that's going to leave that roughed up look along the edges. So this is kind of, see if I can lift it and show you what I've done. So I've kind of made it look like grass all along the edges by just poking up the skin with my skewer. So you can see there, the middle's a bit puckered, but that's okay because he's going to be sitting on that. So at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and let this set, and then we'll be back to put our bear on and get him setting in the middle of the grass. See you in a minute. Hi everybody, I'm back. So my soap has set pretty hard in the middle, and I'm going to say this crystal, not crystal, but the clear melt and pour that I have sets very quickly, so I had to work with it fast. So I'm going to go ahead now, and I'm going to make cross hatches on the top of the green soap in the center, and I'll show you what it looks like. So there's some cross hatches in there, and I'm just going to put a few more. really rough it up in the middle here where the bear is going to sit. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rough up the bottom of my bear again. This just helps the soap stick to one another when we do the pour. So I'm going to spray the top of the soap with rubbing alcohol and the bottom of the bear. And I'm going to set him in there. So I've got him nice and set down in the middle here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to heat up what's left of the clear melt and pour. So I can just do a little bit around him so that he'll stick nicely into the soap. So I'll be right back. So I'm back. I'm just going to give everything just a bit of a spray down here. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually, where I'm going to pour, I'm just going to turn this sideways so I can show you what I'm doing here. Is I want to pour sort of in between his legs, so that the soap gets in there. I'm going to start with lifting him up and pouring just a tiny bit onto the bottom here, so that when I put him in there, he's going to stick down. I'll just put a little bit more in here. And then maybe I won't have to pour between his legs as well because he'll be stuck down. So I've just stuck him in the middle here. And I'm just going to hold him in place for a minute while that's setting. And this is just a very fine amount of soap that I've used to set him in there. So I'm just going to go ahead and rough up in between his legs and around him a little bit again, just so that we get that feel of grass around him. And we're just going to let him set. I'm going to squirt it with alcohol just to make sure that we've got a good set amount in there for the everything to set down. And then when he's completely set in here in a couple of minutes, I'll come back and I'll unmold him and you can see what he looks like on his green base. I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back and our bear has now set in his little grassy nook. So I'm just going to pull him out of the mold, and I'm going to do the same slow release by pulling the sides out first just to get him to release a little bit from the mold. And I'm just going to push him out. Oh my goodness, he is so darn cute. So I'm just going to flatten down the little bits a little bit just to make sure that everything is even and looks like grass. So there he is, and as you can see, that grassy effect looks gorgeous with him. So that's the front, side, and back of the soap. And then we have our lovely clear soap with the green in it, so we get this beautiful kind of shimmer to the soap. So it's a different look when you put the mica in the clear base. So here we have our two bears with very different looks to them. I actually have a third bear setting at the moment because I had enough melt and pour of the Shea Butter soap left, and I added even some more bronze mica to the mix so that he's going to be even darker. And I'm probably going to do another grassy setting for him. These are going to be for some friends of mine. And so there we have it. We have our bears and two very different looks. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe to my channel. And I'll put all the different things that I used today in the description below. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I look forward to our next exciting video. We're going to do something really fun for Easter. Have a good one.